Hi, welcome to Biz Pointz TV. I'm Larry Kortkamp, your host. Biz Pointz is a show that deals with a lot of new trends, topics in the business of small communities. It also introduces us to smart technologies and, of course, the people that are helping to make all that important and work for the rest of us. We have a great show for you today. It deals with cybersecurity, data security, everything having to do with our technical world and how we either have influence over that or seem to not have as much influence over that. I think you're going to enjoy the episode. We'll be back in just a minute to get the episode started.
Create a stronger and more dynamic business. Larry Kortkamp, founding partner at the Kortkamp Group, talks with industry insiders about trending topics moving the needle for local business today. Here's your host, Larry Kortkamp.
Hi, and welcome back. Today, we are talking about cybersecurity, data security, how that impacts our daily lives. We have a terrific guest today, Will Gray from a company called Teknion, and we've actually seen Teknion in a previous episode. We had a couple of your partners that joined us for a very interesting conversation. So, Will, thank you very much for joining us today.
It's good to be here. Teknion Data Solutions, we work with clients from all different industries, from healthcare to financial services, to help them make sense of their data. And so that could be working with financial data to user data, and then helping embed those applications to make the client experience excellent.
What I wanted to talk to you about today was really kind of focusing in on that privacy and security. What is the difference between the two, and how much can we affect change on either of those, and how much do we not get the opportunity to do that?
I really enjoyed watching the conversation with Paula and Kyle, and I thought it led to many different facets, and I think it's important to unpack a few things. So the topic of security versus privacy, a lot of times we put them together, but I think they really belong separately, and we have to look at them separate. So for example, Google and Facebook are really good about security best practices.
Meaning what? What do we mean by the security best practices?
That's a good question. They enforce you to have certain password lengths. So we always know that if I forget to put a number 1 in there or an exclamation point, it's going to reject my ability to have a password. And they're good about enabling two-factor authentication, which is give us your phone number and we're going to text you a small little digit once you enter your password and let you in. Or you scan this app and we're going to give you a code and then you can get into your application.
So that's a basic security definition that we all kind of think about when we think about security. Trying to keep the evil hackers from getting into my account.
Exactly.
So now we're dealing with privacy. How does that differ from security?
So on privacy, it's about, when I think about privacy, it's my right to selectively reveal what I do with that data. So I get to expose myself to who I want, when I want. And Facebook, they give you some, Facebook or Google, they give you the ability to do that at some level, but we know that that data and my interactions is making its way to advertisers. And it's not privacy by default. I have to go into those settings and withdraw my privacy from that.
Plus, some of these things we don't even get to decide. I mean, all of us have read the disclaimer that pops up there. The thing's 104 pages long, right? It's like, you not only can you not read it, you're basically just saying, at the end of the day, I'm either going to play with them or I'm not. And then you're assuming that what they're going to do is not kill you at the end, right? But basically, you don't have any choice over their disclaimer statement.
It's the power of the herd mentality. So all my friends are there. I'm going to interact with them on that platform, and nothing bad has happened to them. So I should be okay exposing myself on this platform. And it works out really good most of the time. It's enabled a lot of small businesses to reach a whole new customer and clientele. But on the other side of it, we're not sure exactly what happens with that data, and we're giving out more information than we probably think. And so you have to look and weigh those costs and benefits to that. But do we have the tools that we need today to do just that type of exercise?
And do we even have, as a consumer or as a small business, do we even have enough knowledge base to even know the questions to ask, right? So it's like, I don't even know what I don't know when it comes to these types of situations. So if I'm a small business, how is this impacting me? So I'm advertising my business on Facebook and I'm gathering data on all my customers because I'm looking for information on them because I want to sell them a widget, right? So it's like, are there any implications for me as a business owner beyond and I guess I'm trying to branch out from our legality issues, because we all know there's legal things that I can or cannot pull in as any data holder or business. But beyond that, is there any other things I should be aware of or notice?
I think it's about being intentional with each input you're giving into whatever form or platform you're exposing your data to. And so it used to be I felt uncomfortable giving my email out. And now I'm happy to put my name, my number. I just signed a ACH authorization form for my bank. They asked for my social security number, where I'm likely to send transfers to, where I'm not. And there's always good reasons to ask that information. But most of the time we are trained just to fill out whatever form is in front of us and not think twice about where that data is going or how it's being used. And as a small business owner and as small business owners, we need to think about what data are we asking of our clients to do, our customers, and how are we going to use that, and would we want to expose that? And then when we're using platforms, the big tech, we should be using it because that's how we reach that larger, broader audience, and that's how we can sell more widgets. But understanding how narrow do I need to be? Because also when you narrow and you target specifically, you can miss that larger view. And so there's a lot of interesting companies that are coming up trying to broaden that advertiser base and not go to specific people or ad track, and trying to target more, use your dollars to broaden that advertising message, much like we used to do in TV or in the newspapers. And so there's this interesting dynamic going on. And today you have more information and more power at your fingertips, but those audiences are still selectively within within your Google, your Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. And so just keeping an eye on that space is critically important.
So your Teknion, I'm not exactly sure what Teknion does, but obviously it's data, and it has to do with data, and you're kind of a third party, you're a contractor in some fashion, where people hire you or put you in the line of gathering data points for them or data for them, and then are they giving you the ability to do that? Are they a watch company and they're saying, I need the data that's coming from that, or how does this relationship work? So
Teknion Data Solutions work with clients across industries, so healthcare, financial services, transportation. You would know many of the logos we work with, but we also work with small businesses, and we help them make sense of their data. So we look at all their source systems, figure out how you bring those together to make more impact, find the insights, find that, we like to say, hidden relevant truth that's buried in the data, and tease that out in a way that empowers the owners, the stakeholder, the business decision maker to solve that problem. And so we work with a broad variety of those data sources and your financial systems to try to combine that together. And so we're kind of on this edge of being the intermediary between these different data sources and the companies that are trying to use that data. I imagine a lot of those companies, obviously this is not nefarious in nature. No. They're not evildoers out there trying to do that for the most part, but they also don't realize how much impact the data that they're gathering can have on the subjects that they're gathering the data on, and how that information might be misused or coupled with something else. Is there a bad, I come from deep in the background of me. I have a lot of real estate and banking and finance and so forth, and a lot of that data, obviously, in the financial industries is used for that specific purpose. It's to try and create a profile on you. If I loan you money, are you going to pay me back, right? And if you don't pay me back, how can I get it back from you? So are there any other situations like that deal with this other data? Is there another party that's buying this data from the initial intended audience? So company A contracts you, is company A then selling that data as well? I would say we don't see a lot. I think a lot of organizations are looking down, how do I monetize my data, or how do I look at data as an asset to hold on my balance sheet? But taking a step back to something you said earlier, our clients have shown a high level of integrity when it comes to, I want to do the best thing with my data. I want to protect my users very well. It's making sure that the right moats and the right walls are around that data, that that it's used well and is governed well. And so I believe in the last one of the past episodes where Paola was talking, she talked about the broad topic of data governance, and which is a very intentional effort within an organization to put the right walls in place to empower users to make sense of the data, but to make sure the right user has the right data at the right time.
So you're talking about building walls or moats around this data. And I fear we're getting into some weeds here. So I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to hear a word from our sponsors. We'll be back in just a second to have a little bit longer conversation with Will Gray.
My American dream is to help you stay healthy and energized so you can live your American dream.
Our American dream is equipping future generations of American dreamers.
My American dream is to protect my community so they can live their American dream.
My American dream is to bring you some spice and flavor to your life.
Our American dream is ensuring what's most valuable to you.
Our American dream is creating opportunities for healthcare providers so they can have their American dreams.
My American dream is serving our business community and advocating for all of your American dreams.
Business runs on technology, and human beings are creatures of habit. Unfortunately, not all our habits are good. Technology, when it works, is supposed to make our lives easier, creating routines that allow us to protect customer data, track our progress, forecast the future, communicate better, and move much faster. So, you need technology solutions that work when you're not working, or simply not paying attention. Smart technology solutions, making the complicated uncomplicated.
Hi, and welcome back. We are having a conversation today with Will Gray of Teknion, talking about data security, manipulation of data, privacy issues. Will, when we left, we were starting to kind of get into a little bit of a conversation that we wanted to expand upon.
Yep.
So why don't we kind of pick that train of thought up and continue on?
I would like that. So we were talking about kind of integrity and what that means around data, and how our clients really want to build that integrity and trust with their clients, to trust them with that data, and what that means. And so several of the clients we work with are in the healthcare space, which is the most sensitive of sensitive data. So we've heard of HIPAA, and there's PHI, there's a whole lot of regulation that's making its way into this space. And so how our clients get ahead of that, a lot of times is very critical and very important, because you have to look and see what's coming down the pike and anticipate how that ends up making its way into that field. And then I think that causes a trickle down into other industries. So when we think about healthcare data and some of the data sources we work with, I'm in there, my son's in there, my daughter's in there, my wife exists in that database. And so many of you are in these data sets as well. And so maintaining that in a secure way is very important, and preventing breaches and figuring out how do you make sure that data is not going to be leveraged against you, that is most sensitive. And so you take a step back and you think about the Apple Watch, or the watch the wearable that you might have, the fitness tracker, or other implants or devices. Those eventually are going to be connecting and collecting that data. And we see the advancements that makes. And so it can lead to very positive outcomes. So, if I have an arrhythmia of some sort, a watch can predict and buzz and say, hey, you should go to the doctor. But it can be used against you, or it can be used in a poor way, maybe if it's an insurance policy.
Or it may not even be used. It just may occur naturally. What happens if something that would occur that disrupts a signal or blocks something or some outside influence? We're all familiar with the term hacker. It's crude, but it gets the message across. How about if it's messed with from somebody that we don't intend it to be?
Exactly.
Where does the rights and responsibilities begin of that protection? I don't know if a lot of these smaller health facilities even think about. I'm glad to hear that some of these people are actually thinking about integrity, and I think our audience is I think they're glad to hear that too. We often think it's some algorithm that's out there. It's some AI machine that's making these decisions for us. So it's always comfort, at least to me, that there's actually a human in there somewhere that's still making these ethical decisions as to what's happening. But if I'm a small doctor, a physician, whatever, and I have a practice, where does that gathering of data, does it start with me, or is a lot of this is it just something that comes with the software that I buy? Do I have any say on what data is gathered or not?
So there are large EMR, electronic medical records providers, that the provider, the doctor, ends up inputting that into, and you have your vitals and different things are collected and inputted that. Your conversations are stored there. And so that's one point of that critical record. And then that gets stored into a database and it makes its way through that. And so there's a chain of custody that ends up having to take place between where that data is inputted and where it's stored, where it's reside, and where it's analyzed. And so all those aspects are critical to protect. Thinking more and putting myself in that doctor's shoes, it's really important just to understand what do you want to do with that data at the end of the day? Am I over collecting? And what do I hope to gain from that? How am I going to make an impact in my patient's life? Because there's really good things to leverage there.
Do they have that ability? I mean, are they in this equation to make these decisions?
I think in a lot of ways they are. Because a lot of it's what ends up getting documented into the MR, what they choose to put in and what they don't. But at bigger facilities, there's mandates that we have to collect this much, or these blood tests get run, because there's the liabilities and protections that have to take place on that other side. So as we taking a step back and as we're storing this data, we've heard about the ransomware attacks that have taken place. And it seems to be popping up in the news more and more. In fact, I did a speaking event the other day, and I just typed in ransomware into Google, and typically when I pull headlines, they're from a month or 2 months, and within very short, I think it was like 2 days, there was 20-something headlines just on a ransomware attack, several of them that have taken place. And so this is hopping up more and more. And right now, the targets are bigger multinational organizations, but we need to understand where our data ends up going as business owners. And so
that's what I'm concerned with, right? And so the audience, and I don't want to get into too much 007 stuff here, but am I going to get a ransomware? We're going to stop your pacemaker if we don't get, is this thing going to get really individual? We're going to cut off your hearing or your eyesight or whatever? Or, what are we exposed to when we get, who even knows I had a pacemaker, number one, and how did they get that information? Well, I went into the doc the other day and he took my temperature and gave me a physical, and now that data is out there for the world to see, and I don't even know who in the world is seeing that data.
So I think there's some really good security best practices to do at an individual level. One is if you go search for there's websites where you can input your email address and see what data has been leaked and what data breaches you have been associated with. For example, I type in my email, I see MyFitnessPal, and I see LastPass, and I see Dropbox. And so understanding, okay, what got leaked is important. And so that's good to look in the past, understand what's been breached, and then you start from today and go forward and say, how can I be better about that? And it's being diligent, as we talked about in the last step, to understand what am I giving and how that data is being used. Playing into the future and looking at IoT devices or your pacemaker, it'd be a very specific attack saying, I want something from Larry, and I'm going to hold him hostage.
Just before we go on, IoT, that's the Internet of Things for all of you. That means your toaster is gathering information on you now as well.
Anytime you can say Alexa or Hey Siri to a device,
your refrigerator knows all. Don't think it doesn't.
And going into IoT, the ability to digitize the world is going to be very powerful. But we have to be careful with the ramifications of that. How much in reality do we want to exist, and how much in cyber reality do we want to exist? I think one of the things to look forward to when it comes to things like pacemakers or health functions is not so much going after Larry specifically, but what does it look like for a nation state attack or a global corporation attack where if I get everybody who's on a pacemaker or everybody with XYZ device, now I can hold a larger audience at hostage, and the payout can be much larger.
So really, our data is accessible to really a lot of people, and the data can be manipulated in ways we really may or may not be conscious of all the time. One thing I wanted to kind of venture in a little bit, and we need to take a break, but I'd like to talk about it when we come back, and that's getting into those areas where it's one thing for me to take on these relationship situations and issues, but the segment of our population that doesn't get that choice is our kids, and how they're affected by these choices and things. They're exposed to opportunities to give data that they're really not aware of. Make your face look XYZ on this new app, and it makes a funny face, and now we've just given your facial recognition to somebody, right? Yep. From all different angles. So all these kinds of weird things that are now creeping up that we really never gave a lot of thought to. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a minute for more conversation with Will Gray. See you back here in a second.
90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. This is a battle between truth and deceit. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
My American dream is to help you stay healthy and energized so you can live your American dream.
Our American dream is equipping future generations of American dreamers.
My American dream is to protect my community so they can live their American dream.
My American dream is to bring you some spice and flavor to your life.
Our American dream is ensuring what's most valuable to you.
Our American dream is creating opportunities for healthcare providers so they can have their American dreams.
My American dream is serving our business community and advocating for all of your American dreams.
Business runs on technology, and human beings are creatures of habit. Unfortunately, not all our habits are good. Technology, when it works, is supposed to make our lives easier, creating routines that allow us to protect customer data, track our progress, forecast the future, communicate better, and move much faster. So, you need technology solutions that work when you're not working, or simply not paying attention. Smart technology solutions, making the complicated uncomplicated.
Hi, and welcome back. We're talking today with Will Gray about all things cyber and security and privacy. Will, when we left, we were kind of starting to get into a subject that I find very interesting too, and it's not interesting, it's kind of scary really. It's about our kids and how this data is beginning to affect them. What are we putting them in the way of here, and how can we protect them better?
Well, our kids are so important. I have a daughter and a son, and they're very young. And so thinking through how we as parents maintain their privacy in this open space, we all want to post a really cute picture of our kid doing XYZ, or a video on Instagram, they're doing something really cute. And we need to be diligent about taking that step and asking, what am I revealing? And when they're 18, would they mind if I revealed that today? And a lot of times it's no. I mean, people enjoy really cute pictures, and I think my kids are the cutest, so I naturally want to post that. But we want to make sure that privacy exists. And one of the bigger cyber events that people are trying to do is, if I can take somebody's identity when they're 5, and then I can store that away to when they're 18, now I can establish that track record and I can leverage that identity going forward. And so
that's kind of scary. What do you mean by that?
Well, think about all the different forms we fill out when a baby comes into existence. And it may be at healthcare, it may be I'm buying a baby book and I'm just wanting to list name, birth date, There's just information that's out there. And so that goes into cyberspace, into a web form. And if those get leaked over time, somebody can construct an identity of that child or of your kid. And then if they store it away and then they come back to it when they're 18, they can open credit cards or steal the identity then.
And again, that's just one aspect. That's just one aspect of privacy and security, but we also have we had talked earlier about marketing, and we'll kind of explore marketing a little bit more, but really when we come to the kids, that's a huge marketing concept for everybody, right? You want to get those kids and have them buying everything under the sun. And it comes into our educational format as well. So we now look at this data that's being gathered and how it's now being utilized by companies that are creating the educational formats that our kids are going to school, how they're creating the software that's teaching them math or teaching them how to move around in society. Now we're getting involved in how that impacts their health and how it impacts their futuristic studies, all these kinds of areas that, again, I sometimes feel like we don't even know the right questions to ask. This is so daunting on the security. I don't want people not to take pictures of their kids, right?
Well, and so when you think about a tablet gets introduced to our kids very early on. And the apps that are on there seem really fun and cute, or they're watching videos on like a YouTube, and they're building an advertising profile behind the scenes. And it's very interesting to see what my son goes from one video to another and what it suggests for him to watch. And it's also very telling how good they are at trying to delineate that. And technology, before we dive into kind of the pessimistic side of it, on the optimistic side, education has never been cheaper. And the ability to learn something online has never been more open and free. And there's a lot of great free courses and free teachings, and our ability to teach our kids one way or another has never been more powerful. On the other side of that, what they're exposed to and the content that is pushed in front of them via an algorithm versus maybe another algorithm pushing down lower takes the ability for what we want our kids to see, or could potentially take what the information is that we want our kids to be exposed to at a given age. Maybe it's introducing something a little too soon, or it's taking something away that would be appropriate for a 4-year-old to see. And so it's up to us as parents to be very intentional and look over that shoulder. We want our kids to be in technology, but not of the technology, right?
We also hope that the powers that be, if I were to be able to tell my tablet, right, that this is a 5-year-old, I don't even want them confronted with these. They say, well, we're giving them a choice. Well, that's wonderful. She can't read yet. So it's like, right, she's looking at the pictures and not the words. We need to be able to have some outside governance that gives us the ability to tune this out, right? You're not gathering data from this select group or whatever that happens to be. And I'm wondering if at some level within our technical society that this is being discussed or an option. And then when we bring that, again, getting out of the nefarious, bringing it back into the real life, if I'm a business and looking at marketing, there's wonderful ways that all this data can help me to market my business. And I certainly want to exploit them for everything that I possibly can within guide limits and situations to do that. So are there lots of companies like Teknion that do this type of work?
I would say it's more of the client side. And so we work with a lot of small businesses with how to leverage that data, and more importantly, how to use technology for good. And so when we're trying to figure out how do I market, how do I bring something to, how do I try to sell more widgets, or how do I try to sell more of an experience? It's knowing who my customer is and how they want to be interacted with. So let's say,
is that why I'm calling you? I mean, I don't even know how this process starts. So I operate a health club. Why am I even calling you? Are you connected with my CRM, my accounting system? So how do we know to reach out to somebody like you?
So with Teknion specifically, if you're a health club, we would help say, okay, you have a CRM, you have your financial systems, you have maybe some device or sensor data that's tracking how many miles so-and-so walked on a treadmill, and helping bring that together so you can get a better profile of of your clientele. Now, the question is what data do you want to remove from that, or what data should go in and help you provide a better experience so that you can help benefit that person's outcome and get them to come in more?
And you actually help the clients, your clients, with that decision-making process,
with that decision,
right?
With enabling governance, figuring out how to monetize.
So they would tell me, well, here's what we can collect, right? This is what you have the physical capabilities of collecting. Here's what might be useful for what you're trying to achieve from that, how we might be able to utilize this in order to improve your marketing or your salability. And these are some areas that we probably don't want to get involved in. Even though it's legal, we may want to not get involved with that.
It's figuring out where that client works, where that creepy line or that ethical line works best for our clients. So do we want to nudge it this way or this way? But making sure that they're comfortable with that. And at the end of the day, their customer won't lose trust in that organization for that. And so it's a fun exercise, but you can play out exactly kind of the directions it does go. And we want to make sure our client and their customers are able to fully take advantage of this wonderful technology we have, but also be aware of the downside risk and how to mitigate those.
Well, I think we've covered a lot today. Number one, we've learned the difference between privacy and security, right? Which is a big difference, and we all need to think about that. I want to thank Will for coming by today and lending his expertise to this complicated subject. I know we've just touched on a little bit that we have to talk about, and I hope Will will come back in the future and we can talk about this in a little bit greater depth. Thank you all for joining us today on this episode of Biz Pointz TV, and we look forward to having you back the next time.
To be a guest or request sponsorship information, contact the Kortkamp Group at 972-824-8001 today. Production and programming information requests for the OBBM network should be directed to Offbeat Business Media by calling 214-714-0495 or send your request to info@offbeatbusiness.com. Biz Pointz TV, podcast, and radio show are produced by Offbeat Business Media for the OBBM network. Unauthorized use of logos, audio, video, or reproduction is strictly prohibited.